Hello.
Hey, Alessio, aren't you on parental leave?
No, next week.
Next week. Ah, okay.
Last few days of work, and I want to see today's demo. So no pressure, Ruben.
It's not that impressive. Hello. The problem is I'm using Jaeger tracing to visualize the traces, and it doesn't really offer any way to like analyze like a bunch of traces and without any anything from that. Should I start?
Yeah, I think no. Are we all here? Yeah, I mean,
I'm hoping Scarbeck's going to join. Which ping him. Here it is.
Sorry, I'm having Zoom problems today. Welcome to today's wonderful meeting. Ruben, you've got the floor because I see your name.
Let me share my screen. So I was thinking about how we can analyze pipeline durations over a period of time and draw some conclusions. So one thing that came to mind was tracing a pipeline as if it's a normal web request. So I tried that. So I tried tracing a few pipelines. For example, this is, I think, today's, yeah, today's. So you can see patterns within one pipeline. So like normal things like jobs that are non-blocking, like this QFull, stuff like that can be easily seen, and you can drill down further. So like, the jobs of the pipeline that is triggered by in dev, but I couldn't figure out how to use Jaeger to sort of kind of aggregate analysis on like multiple traces and see which ones are commonly taking a lot of time, stuff like that. I don't think Jaeger provides any such functionality. Other tools like Lightstep and Honeycomb, they provide that functionality. But maybe someone else has some better ideas of what you can do with this kind of data.
I think in Stackdriver, we also can do this kind of aggregation of traces, right? I think we are using this even for some of the Go projects. So maybe we could, instead of sending traces to Jaeger, we could also configure to send them to Stackdriver, maybe, if we have better tooling for analyzing traces there. I didn't look into Jaeger since a long time and also not too deep into Stackdriver. But I mean, the idea of OpenTelemetry is that it's more or less vendor agnostic, right? So if you configure it the right way,
Yeah.
it should be able to send traces to a lot of different tools, hopefully.
Yeah, it'll be just a matter of changing the URL that you're sending the traces to.
Yeah, but I really like this approach because I always wondered, do we have built-in metrics in GitLab to just see when different pipeline jobs start and end to exactly get that out of our pipelines, right? And I guess collecting this as metrics would be not really working because it would have a very high cardinality, I think, depending on which pipeline you run it on and so on. But exactly for these cases, maybe tracing is the right solution then, because you get exactly these insights, right? And if you aggregate it, you also can maybe see averages and where we spend most time. So really cool.
Yeah, there is the problem that we sometimes rename our jobs. So for example, recently we removed the auto deploy prefix. So it's like every job had like a auto deploy prefix. I don't know if this job from October might show it. Yeah, see, auto deploy wait helm. So I don't know if this kind of renaming of jobs would affect the aggregate analysis, but we can try. For example, if we traced all pipelines for say a couple of months, is that version or something?
Yeah, I guess if we change the naming, then we always run into problems, or if we add new stages or jobs. But in general, we shouldn't change too much, right? So and then we could compare over a longer time in most cases.
Yeah, and we could work around that. I mean, while pulling out the data, we can just ignore the auto deploy prefix. You'll have to do like custom stuff, but it's possible.
I know you're playing with this so far, but have you discovered anything super exciting about the data that you've come across at this moment in time?
No, unfortunately, I've not seen anything that is actionable, sort of.
This may
You can
also
This is
fit with the sort of stuff Andrew mentioned on the platform direction, right? Like perhaps this is a kind of a sort of theme we want to pull out, which is properly, proper visibility or observability into deployment pipelines.
There are many vendors which provide visibility into CI pipelines. I think Datadog has like a whole CI pipeline dashboard. I don't know if we use any of these, but maybe we could think about that as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'd probably first need to talk to product teams about building that kind of stuff into the product.
I think where it starts to get interesting is also points like in our runners, when they start pulling images, how long it takes to pull an image, when it starts to get started up and so on, because this is where we can't really look into, because we can't script this in any way. So this is happening in the application. And I don't know if we have that, but along these numbers, right, to see if we have a trend of increasing pull times for images and things like that.
Those numbers used to be stored in the database. So when we introduced, so when you look at the job, the CI output of a job, you have foldable sections, right? So
yeah,
there are some of them that are generated by the runner itself, and those are counting for download time, preparation time in terms of is the image ready and things like that. I mean, I'm talking about something that we developed 3 years ago, even more. So it can be completely different today. But those sections, the default one, were stored on the database.
Cool. I mean, it's nice to have them in the database, but having them sent out as traces would be even better.
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying that if the data is there, we can try to get it out, even if it's just a one-off query, or if we are going to build an API for getting this out.
So the thing is, the way it's output into the job logs, you can pass this and extract the timestamp. So I had done that for one of them, but I think I have not uploaded it to Jaeger, but it's certainly possible. So like you can have each job, you can have all the sections displayed here as well. That's it for my demo.
Just before we
Stop
go, does
sharing.
it show packaging as well, or does it just start from the deployments?
So you can do this for any pipeline. I've done it for for pipeline, but it also drills down into the packager pipeline. So like this is the packager pipeline, I think, wait helm, and this is the one for wait omnibus.
Interesting, because yeah, that might be an interesting kind of addition. Like if we'd have had that on packaging for the last 6 months, we would possibly have seen dev coming, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Awesome.
actually, the packager pipelines, I think they don't change much, so might be easier to analyze those.
That's true. They tend to add jobs, not like rename and stuff. Yeah. What do you want to do as the next step, Ruben? Like, do you think you have enough to write an issue about this approach, or is it something which sort of I guess like we will certainly be discussing platform metrics in the next few weeks. Would you like more of the kind of high level stuff before we try and figure out how we could maybe put something like this together?
Yeah, there are multiple approaches to do this. For example, I think Robert had done something with pandas recently this month to sort of get like mean durations of the packager pipeline jobs. So I don't know if that will be more effective. And I think the Verify team is also working on or thinking about doing this kind of thing natively in the product.
So perhaps, I mean, we could perhaps just capture the problem and like have it as a kind of like one proposal is possibly something like this.
Okay.
Or just keep it logged as a great idea for when we certainly do talk about this stuff again. So we'll have to figure this out at some point, right?
Yeah, I can record it in an issue.
Yeah, awesome, great.
I think this is neat. I would love to see this get rolled out because I think, at least from a historical perspective, if we could see where we're improving, that would be fantastic.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think pipelines have increased by like 20 minutes in the last few months.
Don't say that. No, you said decreased, right?
Yeah, about 20 minutes, I think. Yep. See, the one in October was 6 hours, 50 minutes. Now it's like all 7 hours, 10 minutes, 7 hours, 15 minutes. Yeah.
And this is going to drastically change when we complete the next stage of the staging canary pipeline work that Graham and Myra are working on too.
But in a good way, because that takes, in fact, yeah, that's the big shift, right? The big change is we brought staging canary in. But once we do the reorder, which is the next step, staging and production will be mostly in parallel. So we will take an hour off, 50 minutes off.
That's another thing I liked about tracing the pipeline. You can easily see what runs in parallel, what doesn't, what waits for something else.
Nice.
Is Jaeger like real time? Like, could this be a different method of watching pipelines to an extent?
Jaeger is simply a UI to see your traces. So it depends on your collection of traces and sending it to Jaeger. If you're doing it in real time, it will be visible in real time. But to do it in real time, you'll have to probably integrate with the product, I guess.
Good point.
Because what I'm doing now is simply using the jobs and pipelines API to extract the start time, end times, and then push that to Jaeger.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
one of the challenges that you run into there is because you have a hierarchy of these spans, the root span has started, but it hasn't finished yet, right? And so you basically don't have that root span yet. So you can sort of find these subspans potentially, but the visualization is kind of partial. And yeah, so when I've tried to do that kind of thing in the past, it wasn't super usable for long running, still ongoing jobs for this reason.
That makes sense. Cool. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Igor, let's do a demo.
Yeah, I snuck one in there. So I figured out one of the issues that we were seeing with Redis replicas, where we've got a set of VMs, and we want to add some pods as replicas to those VMs. So I have already some VMs running, and if I ask this VM0 what its role is, it is the primary, and it has the VM-1 as a replica. And so I now want to add, in this case, it's only got one replica instead of two. It doesn't really matter that much in this case for the purposes of this demo. So I'm going to install Helm to set up now a Redis cluster. So this we've already seen in the past. I think Skarbek already demoed this maybe a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. So this is going to go ahead and install the Helm release for Redis. Okay, so we've got our first pod that is coming up. And this is still a little bit messy in that it goes through some weird kind of reboot cycle. So it's kind of waiting for DNS to become up to date. And only once DNS is up to date will the Sentinel process be able to actually discover this Redis process. So that's kind of why we have this failure here on the Sentinel container within this pod. And this is also why, well, I guess we see ready 1 of 2. So it takes a while for this to reattempt and reconnect. And I think it now managed to properly do it. So yes, so we've got ready 2 out of 2. And so it goes on to the next pod. So what we should already be able to do, and yeah, you can see the first step is going through a crash loop. So it's sort of a similar issue there. But now that we already have one of these pods, I'm gonna kind of fast forward and set this node 0 to be a replica of our VM cluster. So let me find the correct command. So that should be the replica of command. So we're saying node 0, please become a replica of VM0. And so I'll go ahead and do that. And if I now go ahead and ask the VM what its role is, still the primary, but now it's got 2 replicas, right? So we've got the VM, and now we've got node 0 as the other replica. And it's a host name, not an IP address. So this is the novelty. This is the thing that we fixed, which has been plaguing us for like 2 weeks. So I just kind of wanted to demo that and show that it's working as expected.
One of the items I had a question on is I couldn't tell. I remember doing the research, but I forget what the result was. The ID of the replica changes anytime a new pod comes back online, which during one of our testing scenarios, we were adding 1 pod at a time to our infrastructure. And because of that configuration change, older pods get recycled. So they get generated with a new replica ID. And because of that, Sentinel thought the pod was down when it was in fact up and participating, at least within Redis, maybe not within Sentinel. Do we need to look at that any further, or is that something that we could probably not ignore, but something that's probably safe in the long run?
I don't know yet. I haven't seen that resurface, but I think it's a scenario that I should try and recreate as well. Yeah.
Okay. I guess the other question I had is we had spun up 2 issues. One was to investigate creating a deployment where it kind of joins the cluster automatically. And for this, we were able to successfully get rolling. I don't have a quick way to demo that, so I can't really showcase it, but I did at least prove inside the issue that it's possible. I had a question. Okay, I forgot my question. Never mind. Sorry. Does anyone else have a question they didn't forget? Okay. Ahmad, you've been working on SSHD in between your release management. You want to talk a little about the blocker?
There is a blocker. I think, as reported by Sean, it's something related to the RSA keys, like are not readable, I think, by the SHD, if I remember correctly. And this is blocking us from proceeding to production. And one thing from our side is also the observability. Like, I think the AMER is now ready somehow. Like, I will just work on the comment from Scarbeck, and we can merge it later. And I think it would be ready from us, but it's plugged from the other side, from the source code team. So this is just a heads up.
And that's fine. Do we know if they are progressing with any performance testing that we're still missing from our readiness review?
I don't think they did. I think, to be honest, I don't know. Like, I've checked it, but like some while ago, and I forgot maybe. So I don't really have an answer from the top of my mind.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that, you know, before we push this into production, that readiness review has been completed and been reviewed by other members of our infrastructure team. And I know performance testing was on that. So we're blocked from moving from production, but stuff like that shouldn't be blocked at this moment in time. Okay. The last thing on the agenda, Alessio, or rather Amy tasked Alessio with trying to figure out what's going to be blocked when the dev instance gets migrated over to GCP during that maintenance procedure. Alessio and I have been chatting a little bit back and forth on this issue, but I wanted to kind of bring other people, especially on this call, because we're all greatly involved with Kubernetes to some extent. I just want to make sure that I myself have not missed anything. So if anyone else has any thoughts, I just kind of want to bring this thread to everyone else's attention just in case. Amy, I see you've got a question that you may want to verbalize.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we have a date that we're aiming for to migrate.
I think it's still hard to tell. I mean, we just were able today to fix the most urgent chef issues to get a chef run through, but now the devil is in the details, right? To get everything working as we need it. And it's really hard to say a concrete date. I mean, I would hope that we, with the help of Balu, should now be able to work on this node also to get the configuration working for GitLab itself. Then see what else we need to fix and add via Chef. Then testing the data migration. So this all still needs some time. And I'm not sure if we would be able to manage this next week. I mean, we could try to and aim to, and I hope to, but it's really hard to tell.
Let's try to, like, if it means, like, let's try and get this done as soon as we can, because it's causing so many pain points. Like, definitely, like, if that means we need to ask for some help, like if we need Balu to help with things or whatever that is, then let's ask. I would definitely love to have this completed, like the migration completed. We do the cleanup later, but I would love to have this migrated like ASAP, like this week or early next week.
Yeah. So I will spin up a few issues for what's still missing that became apparent today. And I think we can in parallel also start already with testing the data sync, because we have a working machine, at least for copying data too, right now. And in parallel see that we get GitLab up and running as it needs to be usable.
I was going to add something to this, which is I think we should, for any blockers that we have in terms of things that we can't do during a migration like this, I think we should spawn up a new issue and fixing that issue, because it's really hard to believe that basically if dev goes down, we can shut down the business. Because we can't, I mean, I can understand that we can't deploy new stuff. Fine, I can really understand that, but not being able to roll back, not being able to scale anything, this is not acceptable in my view. So, I mean, this is something that we have to fix sooner or later. I'd say sooner, because it's really unbelievable.
Yeah, I think we can figure that stuff out following the migration, for sure. Because what I want to make sure we've got a few days notice of is to schedule this in so that release managers can plan around it. Like, you know, we will certainly not want to be trying to do everything on the same day. There will be some downtime. So that's kind of the you know, let's get an estimate in. But yeah, Henry, to your point, like if there's anything we can push forwards, then please go ahead and do that. That'd be super.
Yeah, I think I can tomorrow start the data copy testing, and that will give us also a time estimate for how long the downtime needs to be. And if we confirm that, then we also know how big the impact will be of the migration, right? And then it's easier to schedule a point where we want to do this. Like if it's very long, then we would maybe consider doing it on a weekend or at low traffic times. While if it's just for an hour, maybe, then we could do it just at any time that we feel fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And Graham is working today as well. So, you know, if there's something which, like, if we get up to the stage where we're up to the data migration, let's get an issue so that he knows that he can kick that stuff off.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Anyone have anything fun they learned recently with Kubernetes they want to share? That's unfortunate. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for your time. See you next week.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.